Hello friends and fellow financial analysts, Dr. E here. Going to cover the first of our Chapter 11 comprehensive problems. Whether to go forward with a project or not. This is the first one, as I mentioned, and this one is titled Digital Products. The second one is called Excavation Company, and the third one is your study session problem, and it's a restaurant app problem. So let's go over digital products. So digital products is considering launching a new line of cameras and photo printers. So the question here is, should they launch a new line of cameras and photo printers? And then we go into some details. Before we get into the meat of this problem and how to go about working this problem, solving this problem, making the decision, do we go forward or not with this project, let's look at the big picture of how to proceed. So the first thing that we have to do with all of these comprehensive problems is we have to forecast cash flows. Forecast your cash flows. All right, and so there are two types of cash flows. The first is your CF0, cash flows at time zero, or your startup costs. And there are two types of startup costs. One is your net capital spending, which is your property, plant, and equipment. And then your second is your net working capital, which is your short-term assets and expenses, short-term assets and expenses. Okay? So those that's your startup costs. Then your second group of cash flows is your annual operating cash flow. So what it amounts to is you have to spend money in order to make money. You've heard that before. And that is your EBIT plus your depreciation minus your taxes. Okay? Now, so the second thing you have to do is develop your discount rate. Okay? And this is going to be your weighted average cost of capital. And to do that, you have to identify the sources of capital, the weights of capital, and the cost of capital. The third thing you have to do then is your net present value and your internal rate of return. Okay? And then we can add a fourth by saying adjust your WACC for risk and then redo your net present value. Once we come up with a WACC, we might have to make an adjustment. Each project has its own risk associated with it. So the WACC that we develop is a firm-wide cost of capital, and it's an average cost of capital, but each project has its unique risk characteristics, so we might have to adjust our discount rate to reflect higher or lower risk. All right, so we have forecast cash flows, develop discount rate, and do the NPV and the internal rate of return. That's the big picture. All right, with that in mind, let's go ahead and start by looking at our cash flows, and we'll start with our CF0 and so we'll start with our startup costs. Let's erase this. All right, so, let's see if this is darker. Our CF0 or startup costs. So let's start with net capital spending, which is property, plant, and equipment. All right. They plan to use a 12,500 square foot warehouse that they built several years ago to produce and to store the new products. The land originally cost them $250,000 and the building cost $250,000, so they originally spent $500,000. Similar properties have recently sold in the area for $30 per foot for the land and $45 per foot for the building. Why are we separating the land and the building? The reason we are is because we depreciate the building, but we don't depreciate the land. Now the land will go on our list of startup cost expenses, but it will not be depreciated. So we have to value the land and the building separately. So remember that the cost that you put on your startup, they bought the land and building years ago. What we have to use as a cost is the current market value. And it says here, similar properties have recently sold in the area for $30 per foot for the land and $45 per foot for the building. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have. So the land is, we're going to use 12,500 feet for the land and 12,500 feet for the building. So the land is 12,500 feet times, we said the 30 feet times $30 a foot. And so that is $375,000 is the current market value of the land. Okay. The building is 12,500 feet times $45 a foot. And that is going to be $562,500. So the total cost of the land and the building is, let's see, it's added up, 13, 1 and 3 is 4, $937,500, but we're only going to depreciate this, okay? All right, they'll have to spend $150,000 to equip the building with materials handling equipment. So we'll call it MHE, Materials Handling Equipment. And that's going to be $150,000. And we've got manufacturing equipment. And that's going to cost $850,000. You got to spend money to make money. Okay? Let's see. Then there's some additional things they're going to have to invest. So then we have net working capital of $450,000, where we will recover 80% of this at the end of the project. So we're going to have to, we'll get that back. So $450,000. All right, so let's see what we got here. So our total CF0 is the $937,500. I'm looking at my list of things here. Plus $150, plus $850, plus $450. So that's our total cost there, and that's going to be $2,387,500. 500. Okay? And let's see, no marketing study, no prototype. Do we have any prototype in here? Okay, we don't have any of that because we wouldn't include that anyway. Marketing study and prototypes not included. All right, so now our depreciable cost is going to be the building and the materials handling equipment and the manufacturing equipment. Okay, so we have 562,500 plus 150 plus 850,000, and so that's going to be 1,562,500. Whoops. Make sure that red dot, yeah, the red light's on. Okay, so that's what we're going to depreciate. And it says we're going to depreciate it over 7 years with no salvage value. And so our depreciation expense will be 223,214. That's our depreciation expense. Okay? All right, so let's... So we've got two important things here. We've got this number here, and we've got this number here. Okay? So we're going to write that down over here. 2,387,500 and 223,214. All right. So let us erase this. And let's write this down. So CF0 is equal to 2,387,500. And our depreciation is going to be 223,214. Okay, now, number 2. Operating cash flow. Okay? So let's do our operating cash flow. So we have sales, cost of goods sold, gross profit, SG&A, depreciation, EBIT, taxes, and operating cash flow, okay, which is this, this, and that. All right, so let's set up our operating cash flow. So our sales, 25,000 units times $180 per unit. Our annual sales, 4,500,000. Our cost of goods sold, 25,000 units times 180 times 0.75, because it says in here, it indicates there is a demand for 25,000 units at a price of $180 per unit. They think they can build the units for 75% of the sales price. So $180 times 0.75 times 25,000 units, our cost of goods sold, 3,375,000. So our gross profit is 4.5 million minus 3.375 million, which is $1,125,000. Okay? It says in here that our SG&A is $350,000 per year. And we know that our depreciation is 223,214. So our EBIT is 1,125,000 minus 350,000 minus 223,214 is 551,786. Our tax rate, 35%. So we're going to multiply that times 0.35, and we get taxes of 193,125. So our operating cash flow is EBIT plus depreciation minus taxes. So 551,786 plus 223,214 minus 193,125, 581,875. That's our annual operating cash flow. Okay? Okay. Let us stop there because we have our cash flows. But remember, let's erase this, that in the 7th year, we're going to recover 80% of our net working capital. So our net working capital was $450,000 times 0.8. Okay, so let's see what that is. Let's figure out our net working capital that we're going to recover. 450,000 times 0.8 is 360,000. So in the last year, we'll generate our operating cash flow, but then we'll also recover 360,000 of the money that we spent at time 0. Okay, so those are our key cash flow numbers. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and work on our weighted average cost of capital. Peace out, shalom.